All right, welcome back, everyone. This is Colin Clark, and I'm again joined by Bill Ridley. He is part of our commercial lines. He is a sales executive in that division. And really, we wanted to further our discussion about the different types of insurance plan sponsors need to be thinking about and acting on to make sure they protect themselves, their organization, and their participants in their plan. So, Bill, welcome back. Thank you.
Yeah.
And, we talked about hockey in the last segment. Well, what I found out, though, is you have three daughters.
Yeah.
Good luck with that. I have two daughters, two sons. So I at least mixed it up a little bit. But you are in the thick of things, huh? Mine are all older and teenagers and stuff. So
yeah, I'm all in right now. My youngest is 5. My oldest is 11. So
yeah. So I remember those days. Well, I try to erase some of those days in my mind. But, I try to keep the fond memories going. It's a lot of fun having girls, multiple girls. And so you're going to have to buckle up here soon and get ready. I know you're already a carpool dad, so you're driving around all over the place. So,
right.
All my best to you, right? Good luck. So, so we were talking a little bit about the different. So we talked a little bit about fiduciary liability insurance. And then you mentioned something that every plan is required to have. And we get a lot of questions on this too when we're consulting on retirement plans. And that is what we call an ERISA bond, or you called it a Fidelity Bond. Can you explain a little bit more to everyone what it is and why people have to have it?
Yeah, and so sometimes there's some confusion between those two products. And really a Fidelity Bond is more of a crime type of coverage. So that protects the assets in the 401k, and it will compensate the plan holders from any dishonest acts. This type of policy is required, as you mentioned. So that's something you definitely want to have, and you need to have at least 10% of your plan assets covered in there.
And then it's up to what? I mean, is this an expensive insurance?
It's not terrible. No, it's not one of the most expensive coverages out there. I mean, it's something you need to have, and it should definitely be part of your insurance portfolio, but it's not overly expensive.
So 10% up to what limit?
500,000.
Okay, so what if my plan? So 10% of 5 million is 500,000, right? So what if my plan is 50 million? Does it matter?
No, it doesn't matter. You just need to have 500,000 on that in that scenario.
Okay, and if I'm new and I'm just starting out, do these bonds, do they adjust automatically, or do you have to redo it?
It depends on the carrier a little bit. Most of the carriers do have an inflation guard in there, so it will kind of step up every year automatically.
Oh, so that protects. Okay, so that protects the plan. That protects so you don't have to necessarily worry about it.
Yep, exactly.
Okay.
Just kind of sets on autopilot.
No, that's great. It just makes me think about a famous example I was telling you about of a client. And they weren't a client of Hub's, but we're in the DC area, and so we have an NFL franchise called the Washington Football Team. And unfortunately, I read this in the paper, but a CEO of a company decided to utilize the funds from his employees' 401k plan to buy himself a suite at the NFL games. Would that be covered under the Fidelity Bond after before he went to jail?
Before he bought himself a suite, huh?
Yes. So famous example of someone who stole his employees' 401k money and then invested that in a very questionable investment, a football suite for the Washington Football Team. But
wow,
would that be a good example of what's covered under a Fidelity Bond?
Yeah, if the assets are stolen from the 401k, that's what the Fidelity Bond is there for.
Yeah. Well, it seems like it's hard to do. I guess it happens, but buyer beware, right? So, yeah. Okay. Well, that's great. So we have the fiduciary liability, we have the Fidelity Bond, and I know we want to touch on the importance of cybersecurity insurance. But first, Bill, you wanted to give us like a case study of why having fiduciary liability is so important. So can you kind of share that with us?
Yeah, absolutely. So Yeah, fiduciary liability. Mostly what you're going to see there is claims that are for improper investments, inadequate funding, failure to perform, or even just poor advice given by the fiduciary. So one of the claim scenarios that that I have and want to talk a little bit about for a case study is on the imprudent investment end of things. And this is a not-for-profit organization, about 100 employees or so. And what happened here was the participants in the 401k plan formed a class action and sued the investment committee and the plan administrator along with the sponsor organization. And they alleged that $6 million that was invested in the fund was imprudent because there was exposure to extensive junk bonds in that portfolio as well. And so they were sued for violating the terms of the master trust agreement and not having the adequate ratings that were required in the contract. So the result of that was, the participants and the beneficiaries sued for breach of fiduciary duty in that scenario. And the plaintiffs sought to recover their lost profits, which were the difference in the value of their investments versus the value that they would have achieved if they had been placed in improperly rated investment vehicles. Obviously, lots of attorneys get involved, and those types of things take a while to sort out. And in this particular scenario, the insurance covers for defense costs, which were about $750,000, plus money for settlement, which in this case ended up being about $2.5 million. So
that's where fiduciary liability insurance really came in to play, right? Yeah. So that policy was activated. Well, that kind of pushes my buttons because, as you know, on our side, where we're retirement plan consultants, we are co-fiduciaries with our clients. And so we have a prudent investment selection and monitoring process where we're coming alongside our clients to make sure things like that don't happen. So I've always said, Bill, that we're in the fiduciary risk management business because, in that scenario, not only would you have the fiduciary liability, but then, our firm, if there was some sort of a lawsuit or potential breach, as a co-fiduciary, we're putting our good housekeeping stamp of approval on that fund menu, and that client could have outsourced that risk to us. Is that fair?
Yeah, absolutely.
So really, when plan sponsors are looking to not only have the fiduciary liability, you really have to have a retirement plan consultant that is a fiduciary, not a broker. So brokers are not liable from a fiduciary perspective. Registered investment advisors, co-fiduciaries are, and that's how we act in that scenario. So I appreciate that case study because that really, gets me fired up because that organization did not take the time to engage with, the right professionals to make sure their retirement plan is operating properly. But I wanted to kind of wrap up our series. So thank you for that. I wanted to wrap up our series with a really hot topic that's coming along, and people hear about this all the time because of cyber attacks, ransomware, but it's affecting the retirement plan industry big time. I've heard of scenarios where people are able to get into 401k accounts and steal people's money. So Bill, my understanding is you guys are selling a lot of cyber insurance. Can you explain how that works and why?
Yeah, absolutely. So cyber is a really hot topic right now, and it has been, in recent years, really. And that's something that businesses and organizations absolutely need to look at. If you have a computer, you have an exposure there. Everybody should have it. If you have a device, if you're doing, even cell phones, give you exposure. So a lot of people don't think that they necessarily have the data that's needed to qualify for personally identifiable information or the risk that's involved there. But the reality is that every organization does. So, cyber security policies will protect, depending on the carrier and what kind of options you choose. You can protect yourself from data breaches of your own information. You can protect from third-party liability. The policies will basically fund and help mitigate and recover from a breach. So they get really expensive, and really the cost has been going up exponentially in recent years. So it's really pretty essential to have a cyber insurance policy as part of your overall continuity planning and business protection standpoint.
That's a great point. So that makes me think, if you have all of your vendors that are responsible for your retirement plan, should you be checking on their cybersecurity protocols and insurance?
I think that would be prudent to do that, and make sure that any partners that you're working with are also up to speed on where the exposure lies and how to protect themselves as well. Absolutely.
Awesome. Well, Bill, this has been really helpful. I know that the folks that listen to this podcast have a lot of questions around that. So you brought a lot of clarity to the situation, and we really appreciate your expertise. And we'll look forward to having you back again, when the occasion arises. So Bill, you take
Great.
care, and
thanks
so
Colin.
much.
I've enjoyed it.
Yeah. All right. Take care.
Thanks for having me on. Have a good day.
That's going to do it for this week's show. Thanks for listening. If you enjoy our show, we'd love for you to subscribe on iTunes or wherever you access your podcasts. The opinions voiced in this program are for general information only and are not intended to provide specific advice or recommendations for any individual. To determine which investments may be appropriate for you, consult with your attorney, accountant, financial, or tax advisor prior to investing. Securities offered through LPL Financial, member FINRA, and SIPC. Investment advice offered through Global Retirement Partners, LLC, a registered investment advisor. Global Retirement Partners, Washington Financial Group, a division of Hub International Mid-Atlantic, and Hub International are not affiliated with LPL Financial. Global Retirement Partners, LPL Financial, Washington Financial Group, and Hub International are not affiliated in any way with the services offered by any guest on this show.
Poor Jeff, he's having to listen to this conversation. All right, hopefully Jeff can edit that, right?